Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sports Rundown, the first one of second semester here in 2010, the first Sports Rundown in the year 2010. I am your host, Lucas DeGarmo, in the studio with me tonight, and literally in the control room, because we're in our Phelps studio on the campus of Winona State University. We used to be in separate rooms, but now we can reach across the table, and we're right in the same room. Connor Doyle, Matt Prank, and Steve Carley join me for the Sports Rundown and the Warrior Weekly Review, and we're going to get started with that right now, guys, starting with Winona State men's basketball. Steve, you and I went down to Fayette, Iowa, called the women's and men's game. First of all, that was a great game for Winona State, and I think we talked to assistant coach Brady Moore in the post-game interview. That was probably the best game that they played this season.
Yeah, scoring-wise, it wasn't, a team win, but defensively just wreaking havoc and ruffling the feathers of those Peacocks, causing 20 turnovers and holding them to 19 total points in the second half. They really went back to those shades of old Winona State defense in that basketball game.
Yeah, David Johnson had 25 points. He led all scorers, 11 of 12 from the free throw line. He got hammered shooting threes 2 different times, made all the free throws, 11 of 12. Just a phenomenal performance by David Johnson. He was also 6 of 10 from the floor and 2 and 5 from beyond the arc. Winona State as a team shot 53%. 43% from the three-point line and 83% as a team from the free throw line. They were 9 of 12 from the free throw line in the second half and 11 of 12 in the first half, and they held a pretty good Upper Iowa offense. Only one player in double figures. That was Brad Burgess, who usually doesn't even get double figures. He had 12 points.
Yeah, they shoot close to 40% from beyond the arc and only shot 20% in the game, as they were just decimated totally in the second half. They got to the point where they were so far down, about 25 points, then they started just chucking up threes, and they really just couldn't find a rhythm against Winona State. Again, when Winona State would score, they'd immediately put on that full court press, and they just couldn't find an answer for it, as Winona they really played all around great basketball.
Yeah, Winona State won that game in Fayette, Iowa, 88-56. That was your final score from Fayette. Last weekend's regional rankings, the first set of central regional rankings, that's the NSIC and RMAC teams all in one. They rank the top 10. They'll do it every week from here on out. But last week's regional rankings, if the season were to end, going by last week's regional rankings, they would have been left out, Winona State. They were 9th in the men's and women's polls, actually, but the men we're talking about right now, they were 9th. Mesa State was number 1 from the RMAC Conference, and then Mankato, who only has the 1 loss to Augustana, they were 2. Metro State 3, Augustana 4, University of Mary 5, Fort Lewis 6, St. Cloud State 7, Colorado Christian 8. Looking at those teams, Mesa State won twice. They're not going anywhere this week. They're going to stay at number 1. Mankato won twice against Bemidji and Duluth. They'll stay at 2. Metro State split. They lost to Colorado Mines, who has a losing record, Steve, so they could probably drop. Augustana, talk about a surprising weekend. They lost a tough game at St. Cloud State on Saturday night, but the night before, they were at the Gangelhoff Center in St. Paul against Concordia, and they lost that game too, and that was a shocker to see.
Yeah, you really can, in the NSIC conference, and even just when the regional rankings come out, you cannot afford to drop 2 games in a row or even a split, really. But on the road, that's just a heartbreaker for Tom Biller's squad and the Augustana Vikings. As you go up to a decent basketball team in Concordia St. Paul, the men, and they come up and they played big and they beat Augustana, who was on a roll after coming off beating the previously undefeated Mankato Mavericks. Yeah, but just the after that, then going to St. Cloud, which everybody was looking at that game, next to the Winona Upper Iowa game as being probably the game of the night, and they just they couldn't pull it together. They were up by as much as 18 points against St. Cloud State, but St. Cloud rallied at home and they came up big when they needed it most and looked for St. Cloud to make a move towards the top 3.
Yeah, and Augustana, they're going to be dropping down. They were at 4. They did lose the 2 games at Concordia and St. Cloud. Mary was at 5. They won 2 games, but they played Crookston and Moorhead. It's always interesting because you think, Mary won 2 games. They were at 5. They'll probably move up. However, the regional committee, from what I understand, takes a lot into consideration for strength of schedule, and by playing Crookston and Moorhead, it will actually lower their SOS. So, in essence, they could actually fall even though they won 2 games.
Yeah, and that puts even a bigger emphasis on this weekend's games with Mary coming into McCown Gymnasium to take on the Warriors.
That'll be Saturday night. They play Winona State plays Northern State on Friday night. Fort Lewis was at 6th in the regional rankings for the men. They split as well. St. Cloud won the 2 games. They had a great weekend at home, beating Wayne State Friday night, and then we talked about beating Augustana on Saturday night. Colorado Christian, they lost 2 games. They were at 8. They're going to be out of it no matter what. Winona State had the 1 game. They beat Upper Iowa, who was ranked 10th in that regional poll. So that really helps Winona State not only to beat Upper Iowa, who was ranked 10th, but on the road and in fashion where they dominated the game.
Yeah, look for a team like Wayne State to probably move up towards that 10th spot, 9th spot, and really be on the bubble and with a chance to make a move.
Looking at the conference standings in the men's side of things, Mankato still at the top with a 12-1 conference record. St. Cloud State now is alone at the 2 spot with a 10-3 conference record, and there's a 3-way tie for 3rd place in the conference. Winona State, Augustana, and Mary all at 9-4, and Mary comes in Saturday night, as Steve talked about, so that's going to be a huge game, and Mary has a tough game Friday night against Upper Iowa before they even come to Winona, so that's going to be an important game as well. And remember, Winona State lost to Mary in overtime in Bismarck, North Dakota, 87-85, a very, very good game. And then Winona State men played Northern State on Friday night. Northern State is currently 8th in the conference, 5-8, but they did have an outstanding win up in Aberdeen, South Dakota when we made the trip up there, Steve. And Winona State beat Northern State, but Brady Moore will tell you this too. He mentioned in the post-game interview, they're a different ball club. They're not going to come in and fold like they did when we went up there.
No, ever since it just seems like whenever somebody plays Winona State, all of a sudden they jump on a run after Winona State beats them. You look at St. Cloud State after we beat them earlier in the season up in St. Cloud. All of a sudden they turned a 10-game winning streak and went down and played Mankato and lost, and that broke that streak. But Northern, they've been on a heck of a run ever since the Warriors beat them in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and look for one very good game that could come down to the wire in McCown Friday night.
Going on to the women for Winona State basketball, they also clobbered Upper Iowa this past Saturday night in Fayette. Winona State women won 90-57 over the Peacocks. Leading scorer for Winona State, Michelle McDonald, had a heyday. She had a double-double after the first half. She ended with 25 points, 12 rebounds. Claire Steffen also added 14 points. She was 4 of 9 from the three-point line. Katie Wolf had 12 points off the bench, 5 of 9 from the floor. And Natalie Gigler had 14 points, 6 of 8 from the floor. Winona State shot the ball well, 53% from the floor as a team, 44% from the three-point line. An impressive performance for the Warrior women. You're playing an NSIC school, Upper Iowa, who's dead last, winless in the NSIC conference, but it's always important to win those games with a lot of gap in between the score, and that's exactly what Winona State did.
And I think they were really disappointed after coming off that overtime loss, that huge comeback, 17 points being down, not missing a shot in the final 5 minutes, and then you go to overtime and you still end up losing it, a heartbreaker up in Crookston, Minnesota. But they did a nice comeback, playing a depleted and disappointed team so far from the Peacocks of Upper Iowa, and just really taking it to them as they came out. They played power basketball, as you can see by Michelle McDonald's numbers. Anna Wirtz, she only had eight points. She only took 8 shots from the field, but as we've seen so far this season, Anna Wirtz, she's counted on here and there in certain situations, but you really, she's not the top scorer, or the top, one that they're looking for. You look at Michelle McDonald as the 25-12 performance that really puts her over the top so far, and she's only a sophomore, so you can look for 2 more fantastic seasons, to come for this Warrior women's basketball club. You look at Dulas with 5 assists. She's really, just being the general. She's not worried about, scoring all of her points. She's just worried about, quarterback in the offense.
Looking at the regional rankings on the women's side from the Central region, again, the first set of rankings this season, Winona State left out. They were 9th. The top 8 make the regional tournament at the end of the season. Long way to go. Still a month left of basketball to be played in the regular season. Fort Lewis from the RMAC was on top of the women's side of things. They won 2 games this weekend. They'll stay there. Concordia, interesting weekend for them. They were dominating earlier this season. Now they're all of a sudden not playing that well. They got a big win against Augustana, who is 6th in the regional rankings, but then lost big time to Wayne, who was 7th. So interesting. That's how tough the NSIC is. You think a team's going to run away with the conference, and all of a sudden they just start struggling. Adams State won 2 games this weekend. They were 3rd. Moorhead won 2. They were 4th. Duluth dropped 2 games to Southwest and Mankato. That was interesting. So Duluth will fall from 5. Augie split at 6. Wayne won 2 at 7. Winona State was down at 9, and again, they beat Upper Iowa. So you got to think the Warrior men and women, and Matt, you can get in on this. The men and women, they're going to climb. They'll be in that top 8, you'd think, with both getting a win against Upper Iowa and other teams ahead of them losing.
Oh, yeah. This weekend's just going to be so huge for both teams, more so for the men, to really climb those regional rankings and to really set themselves apart, and even in the conference. To beat a team like Mary, yes, they've been up and down this season at 9-7 in the regional rankings, but don't let that fool you. They're a very talented ball club. Eric Erdman out there, player of the week last week. So the Warriors definitely need to take advantage of the McCown magic, if you will, to win over Mary this weekend.
Winona State women currently right now in the NSIC are tied with Duluth at 5th at an 8-5 conference record. And remember, Winona State beat Duluth in their only meeting this season earlier this year at home in McCowan Gymnasium. And remember, this weekend again, the Warrior women also take on Northern and Mary at home. Be sure to white out the gym this Friday night against Northern State in both the women's games and men's games at 6 p.m. and then at 8 p.m. The Northern State women come into McCowan Gymnasium 6-7 in the conference. They're in 8th place. Winona State lost, though, to Northern State earlier this year, 66-47. Actually, it just did not. That might be one of the worst games they played all year. And the coaches will tell you that they need to come back and rebound, as they dropped an egg really in Aberdeen earlier this season. Then they play Mary on Saturday night. Mary is 12th place in the NSIC on the women's side of things with a 4-9 conference record, and Winona State beat them by 6 points, 77-71 in Bismarck on the same night that the men fell in overtime. So be sure again to come out to McCowan Gymnasium this Friday and Saturday night, 6 and 8 p.m. on Friday against the Northern State Wolves. Or you can listen right here on 89.5 KQAL. We're going to go now to Winona State Gymnastics with Connor Doyle.
All right. The Winona State Gymnastics team was in action this weekend. They've been competing since the beginning of January. They're 4-1 in dual and double dual meets this year. Sunday was their first quote unquote loss of the season. It was a triangular at Illinois State in their Division I program. They were off pace of winning that one by 12 points, scoring 170 points. Illinois State won with 182 points. Standouts for this week would be Heather Rumlin, who placed 3rd in the overall competition at the Illinois State meet, racking up a score of 35.053 in the 4 events. Also, 3 Warriors had career best in individual events. Melissa Bodwin scored a 9.35 on the beam. Katie Gregory racked up a score of 9.325 on the floor, as did Stephanie Watchton. Their upcoming meets would be the Best of Minnesota meet in Minneapolis. That's on the 6th. They're at home against the University of Wisconsin Whitewater on February 12th. And a week after that, they are at University of Wisconsin La Crosse. For all those who haven't been to a gymnastics meet, I was at the last one against Oshkosh, and it's really a great thing. It's a great sport. It's a fun sport to watch.
They get a great crowd.
Yeah.
It's just lively in there, and they are a lot of fun. So I recommend everybody going to all the home meets, because There's not very many of them.
And the lacrosse meet too. I mean, lacrosse is only 20-25 minutes away. Depends on how fast you drive, and it's a great experience.
Our own Steve Carley caught up with the head coach for the Winona State Gymnastics team. Let's take a listen in.
Coach, what are your expectations for this season?
We intend to build on what we've started in the last 4 years, developing a deeper and stronger program each year. We have a great group of athletes this year, some very strong freshmen coming in to help us, and we're hoping to build on our appearances at nationals. Last year we finished 4th, 2/10 out of the first or the second place position, and we're hoping to get there again together as a team, and then hopefully be more successful there.
You've won a couple of events already so far this season. What have you learned about this team?
We learned that we have a lot of depth on this team. That's something with luxury we haven't had in the past years. We usually are 5 or 6 deep in each event, and this year we're finding that we've got 7, 8, 9 players in each event that can help us out. So we're able to rest a few kids if we need to, and we've got great replacements if we have an injury. So we're really happy with our depth.
Who are a couple of gymnasts that really stand out on your team?
Heather Romeline is our strongest all-around performer, and she's been very consistent the first 2 outings. She carries a lot of weight on her team, and when she's on and she's hot, the rest of the team just feed off of her.
I've noticed just by looking at the roster, 14 underclassmen out of 22 gymnasts on your team. How does that affect your squad?
Initially, it left us with a few variables that were unknown, but they've proven themselves already in the lineup. They've been capable, and they've been putting out good scores for us. So we're very happy with what they've been able to contribute to us.
And who are a couple of those underclassmen that have been overachieving or really stepping out on the floor?
We've got stand-up performances already out of Anna Gleason and Kimberly Miskey have been very, very strong for us and very solid. But the squad as a whole has been developing, and we expect big things out of several new players.
So far, do you feel that your team has good senior leadership with all these underclassmen?
That's an interesting question because we have one senior on our squad, and she's been with us obviously for 4 years, but she does one event for us. Our leadership comes from her, but we rely heavily on our junior class to carry that load as well.
What's the toughest part of coaching gymnastics?
I think our sport has a lot of challenges as far as coaching, but obviously more than any other sport, I think the fear factor has to be overcome. When you're on 4 inches of beam and you're doing a flip, you have to have a mindset that believes in yourself, and obviously every other athlete and every other team has to do the same, but they're not trying to prove themselves and believe in themselves on 4 inches of beam or flying through the air. So if we can win that battle, if we can win confidence that I'm capable and I can do this, the girls can pretty much do anything they put their minds to.
What's also one thing that you want people to know about this Warrior gymnastic team?
We want people to know we're here. We are unfortunately in the same season as some very strong basketball teams at Winona State, and so we're building a program that was pretty weak 5 years ago. There was 5 girls on the team, and in 4 years' time we've been to nationals twice. So we've got some great gymnasts here and some great things happening, and we'd sure like to share it with the community.
And you just heard the head coach, Becky Rebecki, the head coach of the Winona State gymnastics team. Really a rebuilding program. She rebuilt the program from almost scratch, as she mentioned 5 years ago. Just incredible. And as Connor said earlier, just go to the meets because it's something to see. It's lively, like we talked about. We're going to move on now to Winona State women's track and field again with Connor.
All right, the Winona State women's track indoor season is well underway. They've got 3 meets under their belt: the Eau Claire Blue Gold Open, the Wisconsin Open, and the MSU Mankato Open. So they've been being fairly productive. They've been running very well. Recently, the 4x4 set the school record, and they provisionally qualified for NCAA regionals with a time of 3 minutes and 54 seconds, which for those of you who aren't familiar with track, that's a very fast time. That's a very good indoor time. They will continue indoor competition on the 6th at a Whitewater, the Warhawk Classic. The NSIC Indoor Championships are the weekend of the 26th and the 27th of February, and then outdoor championships or outdoor meets start on March 27th. So it should be an exciting track season for the girls.
Thank you very much, Connor. And remember, Warrior fans, tune in Friday night for White Out McCowan night. Wear white to the game as Winona State will take on Northern State. Northern State comes to town. The Warrior women tip off at 6 p.m. The Warrior men tip off at 8 p.m. Listen to all the action this weekend on your only voice for Warrior basketball, 89.5 KQAL. Thanks for listening to the Warrior Week in Review. For Steve Carley, Matt Prink, and Connor Doyle, I'm Lucas DeGarmo.